Welcome to the video. My name is Agent Double Sonic.
The title does not say commissions part 3. I didn't do this for nothing.
Hello, commissions. I didn't do just one. I did two in one video.
Both of y'all.
We have a niece, remember? And look. You see the date? Check your watch. Her birthday. Yeah.
As you were.
I know. Happy birthday, Trinity. This is for you. Mermaids, unicorns, mythological creatures, all that jazz. You already saw the title. Let's go ahead and get started. So first, what you're about to see in this very brief time lapse was the original video idea. This was the original concept for this video. I was going to explain my style, how I think I've been finding it, explain the colors and why I chose what it did, but it felt like a cop-out. No, it truly was. This was a scribble at best. I even drew this in the sketchbook that I reserved for my final projects. You know, like the dots video I did at the beginning of the year? I rushed. I purely rushed because I was trying to do so many things before this vacation I had the following day at the time of the recording of that video, and I just wanted to have something out for the week. But I told myself quality over quantity, even if that meant I fell back out of the YouTube algorithm. But anyways, I was trying to do this because my girlfriend was coming into town. Wait, did I say girlfriend? I meant fiance. I finally proposed to her and I've been on a cloud 9 ever since. That being said, I talked to her in the middle of the vacation and explained what I wanted to do, and the only art store that would help fulfill that need was Blick Art Supply. And when in Rome, or rather, when in Tampa, we go to Blick. There we go. So we picked up the wood panels. I'm not gonna hit your head, I promise. Pick them up. Then once we get back, we'll go ahead and start. I'm dropping things. We're gonna get back and we're gonna start working on them later on. Probably not anytime soon. There's gonna be a really dated video by the time you see this. Now that we're back, or rather, I'm back. Fiance had to go back to Texas. Don't worry, I'll be there soon. I decided to tackle this on the iPad. So I snapped a picture of this wood panel. That way I have my sketch pad size of Procreate. I told myself I would do this all entirely on Procreate to get used to digital media. It took so much longer than a regular sheet of paper. And you're watching the time lapse now. It was just odd for a traditional artist like myself, but I did tell you that I would get better at this, and to get better at something you have to practice it. Although personally I would rather have a bigger tablet, a bigger iPad, because I like larger sketchbooks when I'm working on things like that, but to each their own. Now that the sketch is done, it was time to prep the panel with some gesso. And for those that don't know what gesso is pretty much like a primer. It gets your surface ready for paint. Now that this is a wood panel and not a canvas, I just wanted to put down some gesso, that way the paint took better to the panel and the fibers would not soak up as much paint. That way it won't be as many layers. Does it almost sound like I know what I'm talking about? See, I retained some information. Now, while the gesso was drying, I did connect the iPad to the projector, and that was when I found out that this projector is going to be a fantastic tool in the future for some of my larger projects. Just not this one. Because after I connected it, I grabbed a piece of paper, traced the outline size of the panel, and I fixated it to the wall and saw that it was a bit too small for the projector to downsize to, and thus the lines weren't showing up defined enough, and the sketch looked even worse than the iPad product, so I ended up chucking it. And not to be discouraged, I did push forward. Now that the gesso dried, hung up the panel and traced it. Okay, it was time to get started. I saw this technique from another great artist on YouTube that goes by the name of 1000. He does the most dope paintings, he has the most dope merch, and he even dabbles in his own music creation. He's freaking awesome, and I cannot wait to make these a legend. I'll put the link to his channel below, but he tones his wood panels before he starts his painting. Now, why do you tone a canvas or a panel? Well, with the surface being a white background or a white gesso panel, sometimes the white shows up through the paints, and so with a tone panel canvas, it just kind of helps. But enough talk, let's go ahead and get to painting. For my background, I went with a pink-purple kind of mix, so that way I can give the whole vibrancy and then add the water swirls of light pink and dark purple, and I thought it came out pretty well. Now that being said, I did get a little carried away, and I ended up painting over parts of the mermaid herself, so I went back to my projector, spent much longer than I like to admit on realigning it up and trace it out again. I touched up a few areas, and for the skin complexion, I wanted to make sure that I gave the proper layer tones. Now I know all the colors look a little bit different from the iPad sketch, and I guess because I subconsciously, after working for Disney for so long and being exposed to the only mermaid, and honestly the only mermaid I can think off the top of my head, was the same as that color scheme as Ariel, which was not my goal, it just happened, so I decided to switch it up and give a little bit more homage to that first original sketch you saw at the beginning of the video. I gave darker hair, darker skin, and the mermaid fins in the top was like a darker blue. It gave her green eyes to pull the attention to whoever looks at the mermaid, knowing that she is looking into your soul. Also, I put the little shell at top. I know that this is the painting, but you clicked on the video because you saw the thumbnail about a three-dimensional painting. What was that all about? Honestly, you all liked my video of the first clay sculpture, and I wanted to try it again. But why not combine drawing and painting and sculpting and pretty much just too many things all at once and create a nice jambalaya of creativity? I took my rudimentary basic skills and I decided to make a sculpture. I severely underestimated how long this was going to take. So the way I started this was get the armature wire and laying it down on the panel and comparing it to the actual painting for accuracy, and then from there it was just time to start constructing the mermaid herself. Considering that this is going to be on a panel, I didn't want to make this purely out of clay for two reasons. One, fearing that it may be too heavy once the panel gets hung up and fall and break the clay sculpture, or maybe potentially damage someone else's personal belongings. And two, honestly, clay is expensive when you have no money. And for those watching, here's a tip, and I learned this from a whole bunch of YouTubers, Ace of Clay in particular. Grab some aluminum foil for the next time you create those larger pieces to reduce the amount of clay you use. Now, I decided to roll out the clay after running it through the pasta maker to get the sheets to wrap around the foil. Then I proceeded to start getting my arm workout in by working this clay more, and then using some bacon bond by brushing that onto the aluminum foil and then putting the clay on top to reduce the air bubbles that will prevent cracking. And now it was time to create the body. I will also tell you that I'm probably done using Sargent clay. This is the clay that I used in conjunction with Sculpey on my first clay sculpture, and I don't know, it just felt so difficult to work with, and there was just a lot of breaking up and cracking, and the clay wasn't dried out or anything, it just didn't feel right. And I know this is only my second clay sculpture, and maybe someone that has a little bit more insight, tell me if maybe I'm just not preparing this right, but I don't know. Once I'm done with this pack, I'm not going to order anymore, and then I'll just stick to Sculpey. You know when they say, if it ain't broken, don't fix it? Or there's a reason why it has its notoriety, or there's a reason why everyone uses it? Well, that's why. Now, I know the arms are not the right size, and even after sculpting it, she has this whole Popeye's forearm thing going on. This is where I realized the major flaw from the beginning, even before the video, before the painting, before the drawing, was that my concept and my idea did not know if this was going to be a realistic or a cartoon mermaid. It came down to proportions, it came down to so many other things, and it finally boiled down to this moment right here when I made the arms. It wasn't real or cartoon. It's this weird quasi-realistic, and then just off enough where it felt wrong. Alright, let's start creating the definition of her body by adding details for the top and the textures. I crumpled up a ball of aluminum foil and rolled it around the entire body for the scale effect. And if you are going to be using aluminum foil and you're doing the same thing I'm doing, just make sure you're rolling around the entire thing, so that way you're giving the texture and not so
stamp-like if you're pressing down to it, because when you do that, it creates more so a pattern that is uniform, and if you miss stamp or if you do it over, then you're going to create yourself like these double layers, and then it's just going to be more frustrating, and then you're going to have to redo all of it, and you know, time is money, as they say. I do apologize. Again, I'll list all the stuff I'm using in the bottom. But now, this was the most time-consuming, difficult thing I've ever done as far as art-wise. While you're watching me create this final part of the mermaid, there's something I do need to confess about this piece. My biggest goal for this piece was to push my limits on what I can create as an artist, and also not being afraid of what I create. I feel like nowadays so many people, and I fell a victim to this as well, are too focused on presenting the best of what they create, which there's nothing wrong with that. Posting what looks good is how you get the views and likes, but I feel like there's an element of learning and growing that so many people don't get to see, which you can see when you see the finished products and they get better progressively, but there's so much that gets left out of seeing people not showing their work until like they get their creme de la creme 5 years in between. And for me personally, I will say that as of only recently, I came to terms that I'm at best, I'm okay at what I do. And for the longest time, I was not okay with that, and it ended up pushing things to the side, hence my 2-year commission list. But now, I'm getting back to why I started art. I get to express how I feel and what I want to share with the world, and yeah, okay, there's a lot of trial and errors, and no, not all of them will be shown to the public. There's still a few other things to work on the side, but yeah. By no means am I professional, or everything that I create is going to be perfect, and same goes for everyone else. Like, if you're making something to make it, do it. Don't let yourself be afraid of judgment. Yeah, there's going to be people that say, oh, this isn't good, but then there's people that like say, oh, you know, this is phenomenal, how do you do so well? Practice makes perfect, and just keep on creating, keep on doing your best, and you can draw the same thing 100 times, and you eventually will see the mistakes and learn, and just go from there. If you're working on something, art, or just something over and over and over again, you get so consumed by it, so wrapped up in it, that you don't see from the outside looking in with new perspectives or fresh eyes on it, and you may honestly make more mistakes than not making mistakes. I could have said that significantly better, but you know, take a step back. That being said, let's go ahead and get back onto the rest of this mermaid. Sorry about that tangent. I just wanted to, yeah. For her hair, I grabbed a sheet of clay made from rolling it through my pasta maker, and then to give it volume, I decided to make this Dolly Parton beehive out of aluminum foil instead of clay, because I felt like if I would have used clay, it would have been too heavy from the top of the head and may have broke along the neck. Now, with the length being correct, let's go ahead and shape it out by getting the scalpel tool, adding the little wavy lines for the layers and stuff. I decided to stack more clay on top until I was happy, and then I decided to texturize it with the foil again. Now it was time to bake in the oven, and if you're using Sargent clay, sorry, but it doesn't say on the package how long to bake it for. But I will tell you right now, it is 212 degrees for 20 to 30 minutes. You are welcome. It says it's on the site, but not on the package. Sargent, fix your stuff. Unless it was just something I got from Amazon, so then I apologize and I take back what I said. Now that the sculpture is baked and completely cooled down, that is very important to make sure that you let the cooling process happen and you don't shock the clay, because it may cause cracks or it may actually just break the entire thing. So what I did, I turned off the oven and let it cool down gradually, and then I let it sit outside of the stove or oven, whichever one you say. Let it sit outside for a little bit and then it could cool down. But anyways, now that it is cooled down, it is time to paint, and I will be using acrylic paints from multiple brands because I didn't have all the colors in one, and that is Liquitex, Apple Barrel, and Folk Art, and they're all going to be of the matte finish. I was in the very beginning of painting this when a piece of the hair broke off, which did cause a moment of panic, and at that point I was just done, and I was like, But you know what? A lesson was learned here. To avoid this, make sure that your layers are not too thin, and maybe some other clay except this one. I'll have to do more research and experiment, but I did fix it with some Bake and Bond, and I realized after painting that you would have to bake it in order for it to adhere, so I'm going to have to fix that later on. But back to the painting. The blues and greens to add that shimmer effect, along with giving some definitions. I should have used maybe like a darker blue to add a little bit more shadows to just give that more depth. But for the skin, I made a base of brown and washed it with a darker brown, the greens and the shades of greens for more depth for her eyes and her lips and the shell in her hair. And lastly, for her hair, it was going to be a darker color, so I decided to do a light wash of black. And when I say a wash, it's pretty much just watered down paint. I outlined the eyes, the ears, the lips, and her scales with like a smaller brush, black, to give this mythological creature more life. And lastly, I used a light brown orange wash on the entire creature to give it more tone and to fill in, honestly, the smaller cracks of this piece. Thank you so much for watching, and I didn't create an outro for this video, and if I create it now, it's not going to keep consistent with what the consistency that I had in this video. So I'm just going to say it here and probably do some sort of B-roll footage if I have it. I'm not sure if I do or not, but thank you all so much for watching. So much, and this was fun. I will be doing this again in the future. Peace, love, and hot sauce, and as always, thanks for watching. Happy belated birthday, because by the time you see this and it's out, it's been past your birthday. I love you, and I will see you soon.